Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Not Too Comic Book. This being a show where we talk about TV shows that are adaptations of comic books. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the latest episode of DC Stargirl. A lot of interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. I was kind of feeling hyped about this episode until we got to those last few minutes, and I just finished the episode when I'm recording this, and I'm still brokenhearted about it. I'm like, no matter how the show ends, it's always going to have that depressing element to it, because I was like, please, as long as they're not shattered, it'll be okay. And then he shatters them, so I'm like, no, because I was like, at least if they're frozen, maybe someone can, unthaw them somehow, but I'm like, that sucks. I was like, because obviously they changed a lot of this season for the fact that they knew it was coming, this would be the end of the series. So I wonder what's part of that. How did they retool certain things? Was that always going to be were they always going to kill, Crusher and Paula in the end? Which is so heartbreaking, especially when we got that opening with them and everything, and they're feeling good and they're proud, and just, them running down the streets, and it's like, oh, hey there, hi. And then Crusher, boxing a little bit with the officers, they became a part of this community. They found a new home here. They literally found their place here. And they went by the McKentas, right, if we were us, if anyone ever attacked us, we'd take care of them, old people, dentures, whatever, we take care of them. But it's yeah, because they might not have come after us, but they came after Pat and Barbara. That's our people, but it's right, we're not going to use violence to solve our problems anymore. It's well, how are we going to handle it? And Paul's I don't know yet, but I'll figure it out. And oh my God, it's because they're your favorite couple, because I love them so much, and I love their friendship with Pat and Barbara, and that's so heartbreaking, because now their daughter has to walk away an orphan. She lost her parents before they were in jail. Now she got them back, just to not only lose them again, permanently lose them. There's no undoing that, which is heartbreaking, I just had to talk about it, because that sucks so much. And obviously talk about the fact is Jordan's back now. So the question then becomes well, how is he back? I guess either one, there were enough shards of him left that he's just slowly been recuperating himself over the course of this series. Ever since he died, for the past 2 seasons, he's just been slowly regenerating. Or it has something to do with who is so he's the killer. That also that explains the slash mark. And obviously, the body left alone, the ice would probably melt away, so they probably wouldn't think much of it, So that's why it looked it was easily why it looked like Cindy, aka Shiv, did it. So, but we find out one of the antagonists behind this is the Ultra Human Knight. Because I was is this a gorilla that's from Earth 2, that was in Flash? That gorilla, could that be who it is? It wasn't until Pat and Sylvester looked at each other when they heard from Mike and Jakeem, which we'll get to later. And I was and they're oh, this is the biggest threat the JSA's ever faced. I was wait a minute. Because I couldn't remember its name until they said it. I was that's it. I did a video talking a little bit about this guy years ago. It was basically during because it was celebrating Superman's 80 years. I looked up some things I didn't know about Superman to celebrate that, right? That is what the Ultra Human Knight is Superman's first supervillain ever in the comics. He tussled with bad guys before, but I think this was his first superpowered supervillain or something like that. This guy predates Lex Luthor in the comics. I want to say it's the early 30s when it's maybe I want to say Lex might have been 35 and this guy might have been 34 or something like that. I don't 1935 versus 1934 or something like that. I don't remember the exact thing, but I was oh my God. Yeah, he's Superman's first ever Superman. But I do feel he predated Lex maybe a year in the comics. Man, just how serendipitous. Because it didn't even cross my mind to think about that. Like I said, until they were oh my God, this is the toughest thing that the JSA's ever faced. And I was wait, could it be that guy? I was wow, that's so interesting. I think when I was looking it up at the time, I think he's made animated appearances, maybe in some of the shows. I don't know, maybe the movies, animated movies, but I think he has popped up in the animated shows. I just can't think off the top of my head. But I was wow. And I would not have... that just happened to be one of the facts. I only know the Ultra Human Knight, like I said, the bare minimum about him, just because, like I said, I did research on him a tiny bit years ago, celebrating Superman's 80 years of being around. I was that's fascinating. I was that's so interesting that, yeah. Because I think I also remember like the story Pat and Sylvester tell about him. Like, oh yeah, he was in an actress's body. I was like, I feel like I do remember that being a thing of like the gorilla body wasn't the first thing. It was like other stuff too. So I was like, man, I was like, was it that Dolores Winters or whatever, the actress, and it's even kind of messed up that he was living as her for a year. Like the movie she got an Oscar for, it was actually him. It's like that's all kinds of disturbing. That almost feels like a villain you'd see in the Doom Patrol, but I mean, I guess that's almost because like, well, we got Brain last season, and oh god, what's his name? I'm blanking on it. The gorilla dude. It's not Gorilla Grodd. I was wondering if that's who it was, but it's like it's oh god. Monsieur Mala, that's who it is. Okay, I had to Google that really quickly to remember who that was. But either way, this feels like it could easily be like a Doom Patrol villain in particular. But wow, was not expecting it. I don't, because like I said, I thought that was just interesting because he's a Superman villain first, but I'm sure maybe he's had tussles with like the JSA or the Justice League too. But either way, that was kind of an interesting reveal. And I do love, circling to Jakeem and Mike, they were running for their lives, but once again, that Thunderbolt continues to be so unreliable because you have to be so specific. They were trying to get a payphone, but it's like, cool, because like payphones are so antiquated. They're like, wait, we need money to use it, like to make a call. It's like, yeah. It's like neither one of them has money on them, especially like a dime. So it's like, what do we do? So they're kind of screwed in that department. It's like, well, we can make another wish. They just have to be super, super specific. And they run into Cindy. And I love that Jakeem, just because he's super crushing on Cindy, is like, hey, like, lizards are the most, like, very beautiful reptiles or something like that. And it's just like, but Cindy's like, yeah, I'm going to catch this guy. And once I do, because I believe he's the killer, I'll rub it in Courtney and her dumbass friends' faces. Which is actually kind of like, it's almost sweet to know that, like, yeah, despite everything, she's not running away for nothing. It's like, no, I'm going to prove my innocence and I'm going to rub it in their faces. It seems, I mean, obviously you want to clear your name, but there's also a little pettiness to it because it's also like, regardless of it, like, they are the closest thing she's had to friends, especially Courtney. So for her, it's like she wants to kind of like rub it in her faces, but I think she also wants to kind of be brought back into the fold because it's like, right, I want us to work. I want to be on good terms again. I think she'd play hard to get, but like, fine, if you really beg me, I'd come back. I think that could end up being the case, but it's just because she couldn't really trust anyone and no one couldn't trust her, so we'll see how that plays out. But Sydney's going it, alone right now, and this is a situation no one should be going alone, so. But obviously some other interesting things that came up, there's the whole Rick situation. Obviously, like, his heightened blood pressure and stuff, it's because of the hourglass situation. Rick's not listening to anyone, and it's like, right, like, obviously you should be able to tell, like, something's off. I mean, it's like, this all started, like, things went way overboard, Rick, regardless of it all. Like, the only reason why Yolanda and Beth went inside was because you went, like, charging ahead. It's like, yeah, regardless of the information they had, like, you went full raging bull in there, and it's like, yeah, he's like, I'm fine, I've never felt better. And Beth's like, all right, just take the hourglass off for just 10 minutes. He's like, don't tell me what to do. So it's like, Jesus, man. I think the only person that would probably be able to smack some sense into him again will probably be Grundy. I don't know if that's an element they're going to try, because the whole point was like, I mean, maybe by the end of this, Grundy can come back, and maybe being reunited with him again, like, maybe he could smack some sense into Rick or something, like, or maybe in combination with the JSA could smack some sense into him, because, like, they're the only family he's got, because outside of them, he has no one, and I think a lot of that's playing into it, like, once again, his overprotectiveness. He wants to protect the people he cares about. They're his family, but, like, I think that much power, it corrupts you, especially when that's the whole point of limiting it, so it doesn't get to you. And just like, because he's not only like, it's literally making him run hot, because even Beth's mom was like, yeah, your blood pressure and stuff like that is like not normal levels, unnatural levels. So it is having, like, I think, a biological and physiological effect on his body, in turn having, I think, a mental, like, making him, like I said, literally and figuratively run hot, so there's that angle to it. Then there's the McKents themselves. You had because at the time they were kind of worried, like, what if the McKents did something to Mike and Jakeem? Why they haven't been, why haven't been found? Because Mike and Jakeem didn't let anyone know what they were up to. So now it's like, right, maybe the McKents did something to them, especially if they found out Mike is the one that killed Jordan. So Pat went with Sylvester, which was kind of the worst person to go with, but it's like definitely couldn't bring Courtney because that would have been issues. So they no weapons or anything, and it's like, right, Pat's like, I'm sorry about what happened. He's trying to reach out to Cameron's grandfather because he is the more reasonable one, but for him, he talks about what they went through. So I thought this just went back to World War II. It seems like it runs deeper than that. Forever, like, their people have always been hunted because of them being different, because of their powers. So they've been burned at the stake like witches for centuries. So it isn't just like, because I felt like that wasn't just a World War II thing, but I thought maybe that's what they were referencing, and maybe that didn't help things, but I think what it really stems from is like centuries of them being hunted down. Men, women, children, didn't matter. If you were one of these things, you were a freak, you needed to go, you needed to be burned at the stake because you were unnatural, you were something else, you know? And now it's like, right, our son, we came to this country wanting a fresh start to kind of get away from all of that. This was supposed to be a fresh start, and to lose our son. He's like, I can probably get to my way of, like, regardless of what the circumstances may have been, why it happened, how it happened, and my wife is not in a forgiving mood, so... And there was also this effed up thing where Sylvester, in the most douchebaggish thing when they were talking about killing Jordan, like he kind of has a lower like fist bump with Pat, and Pat's almost looking at him, are you, what the hell is wrong with you, Sylvester? So he's always been a little disturbed. That's why I kind of felt like there had to be something like legitimately off with Sylvester, because he just hasn't, I mean, to be fair, we never spent enough time with him to know, like, hey, this is just straight up his personality. But he does have, like, anger issues. Maybe he always did, or maybe coming back from the dead. Maybe like Lazarus Pit kind of puts that little bloodlust in you. I don't know, maybe kind of a similar thing happened in that regard. But, yeah, he's just been weird and off the entire season. That's why I was kind of like, man, something seems wrong. But maybe that's not the case. Or maybe they were going to lean into something. Maybe it was never going to be something. Maybe it was going to be something. I think with the state of the show now, it's kind of a moot point. What would have been and what always was going to be something, you know? So. And, Grandma McKent actually went to go after Barbara. And it's like, right, you know, it's like, my son was so fond of you and he was going to save the world. So she tried to kill her, but luckily Paula showed him. It's like, yo, next time I won't miss on purpose. And she even takes Barbara out to like, hey, like, here's a crossbow. Like, let me teach you how to like use it. And it's like, oh, like, you know, I'm not a superhero. It's like, and Paula's like, not all superheroes fly. Some of you use arrows. I'm like, yeah, yes, they do, Paula. And it just, once again, I love their bonding. I love their friendship, dude. And once again, it just makes it that much sadder that they're gone. And it's like, especially because this season made you like, you already kind of liked them after last season. This season made me love them. And I was like, you do this to me? That's why I'm like, I have to know, that's something I need to know. Moot point or not, I need to know, was it always the plan to kill them? Or is that something that they shifted because they knew the show was going to end? Because I was like, if you knew the show wasn't, you didn't need to make it depressing. Like, come on, Artemis being an orphan, because she got into like a Nebraska like school, like, and she was going to be the first like female quarterback and in college football, and her parents were so proud of her, and they got that news, and I was like, please don't go down the manhole, please don't go down the manhole, especially when they made the whole point of like, right, we got to join with the McKent, Cindy, and the Crocs, and I was hoping that maybe like once again they just get frozen, but like, nope, Jordan just straight up killed them. So I don't remember if I actually covered that, but I think like the Ultra Humanite might have like done like a Dragon King thing. He might have experimented because he's smart enough to do that. I mean, probably whatever experiments the Dragon King helped him with, because he was probably going to those other facilities, probably just like Cindy was, gathering whatever like he could from those facilities to work on. So he's probably like I said, we have no idea whether Jordan's coming back was 100% just him or the Ultra Humanite. I mean, they both have reasons to hate the JSA's guts. And it's sad, too, even more so because Paula and Crusher went to visit the grandparents and talk them down, because it's like, right, we worked with Jordan. The reason why we sided with him was because of our child. We all joined together for the purposes of making this world a better place for our children, making America a better place for our children. And the fact of the matter is, yes, what happened to your son is unfortunate, but like, what do you think is going to happen? You kill these kids, so what? Like, we know better than anyone that this cycle's just going to repeat. Yeah, what's going to happen? Like, okay, you kill them, they kill you, then Cameron continues that. What about him? What about his children? What about their future? This is what Jordan wanted. He wanted a better future for his son, and now it's a situation of are you going to break that cycle? And the grandfather is like, yeah, I can find in myself to forgive him. Can you? And ultimately, the wife does, and Crusher and Paula left being like, we did what we could, because it was like, right, let's put up our villains at, let's kind of start fresh. This is our opportunity to start over. And that's even something Courtney says later on, like, this is a threat. Just like last season, villains and everyone, we joined together to stop Eclipse. So this is a big enough threat. We all need to come together for this. Heroes, villains, yet again. This could be our time to take Blue Valley back from this killer and start fresh. It isn't, she's like, this isn't even just about Cameron. This is about all of us, And because of what Crusher and Paula did, because what Pat and Barbara did for them, and especially for Paula saying like, yeah, I didn't want to lose the only real friend I have outside of my family. It's like, oh, it makes it. I legitimately, when I started this recording, I wanted to cry. I had to stop myself from crying because I'm like, that legitimately broke my heart that they died. I should do a video about like, character deaths that shook me to my core or something like that. Oh yeah, that one shook me. All right. I'm like I said, I'm legitimately like kind of getting a little weepy eyed thinking about it because it breaks my heart because I love the Croc so much. Oh, it's such important. It's just like knowing like what Artemis is going to have to go through. I guess like, I would assume like the, because of what Crusher and Paula meant to them, like they obviously going to take Artemis in as kind of one of their own, in the process. But, because I don't see that getting undone. Maybe they'll find a way to do it, but I don't see. I think it's like, nope, they're going for good. It's just had to hit you with some heartbreak before the series ends. And God forbid, who knows, like what other heartbreak might be on the horizon. That might be the biggest one, but I don't know, man. Then there's also Cameron's confrontation with Courtney. And it's like, why didn't you tell me about everything? It's like, your dad wasn't who you... It's like, right, like, how do you even go about telling someone, like, your dad's dead, I'm kind of responsible? It's like, you just open your mouth and say it. He's like... But she's also like, I didn't want to destroy the image of your dad. He wasn't a good guy. He... Like, she should have thrown out there, he literally killed people. One of them, a high school student, he set up the situation so that a high schooler would get hit by a truck. It's like, yeah, you remember that? Because it was Home Dude's, was the magician dude that was part of the JSA. It was his son. Because it wasn't Isaac, was it? Because wasn't Isaac the, oh my God, it's the principal's son. Oh God, I'm blanking on all the names. I forget, but the magician character, his son was the one that got hit by the car, if I remember correctly. So like, yeah, and plus he's killed a lot of people, including helped killing the original JSA. So he's not a good person. And I said before, regardless of it, it's for Cameron, it doesn't matter. It's like, that's still my dad. Did he deserve to die? It's like, no one wanted it to turn out that way. And it was an accident. Like, Mike wasn't thinking about it. Just like, oh God, this bad guy's here. Oh, I got to stop him. He wasn't thinking like, oh my God, I killed someone. I mean, later, like season 2, he really kind of started feeling that more and more, like, oh, I'm responsible for this. And he's like, I need to know who did it. And Courtney knew what it meant, saying, because she didn't want anyone else to bear that weight, because as the leader, it's on me. If Cameron's going to be mad at anyone, I want it to be me. Because if he's mad at her, probably less likely to do anything. But if it was like at anyone else, there's no telling how he'd react. And she especially didn't want him to know it was Mike who did it. Because him believing she's responsible, there's no chance of there ever being... Like, there was already, like, a small chance of anything happening between them going forward regardless. But being like, I'm the one that killed your father... She did it to protect Mike. Because it's like, for one, he did it to protect them. And so she doesn't want to take the chance that Cameron might fly off the handle. Like, if you're going to direct your anger or anything at me, don't aim it at my little brother. So she's trying to protect Mike in that regard, so... And now Cameron wants nothing to do with her. I still don't think he has any idea about his parents super murdering his art school teacher and dumping, So I don't think he knows about that. It's like, yeah. And this also fuels the thing of like, yeah, your dad's bad. And your dad's going to be like, yeah, choose my side. But I think how this is going to play out is Cameron's going to be like, whoa, Dad, you're back. But then he's going to see his dad for who he is, finding out like, wait, you did all this? Like, you're a bad person. You're trying to kill people. Just stop, Dad. Like, you're back. We don't have to do this. But it's like, yeah, he murdered the gambler. He's been keeping an eye on, spying on everyone. He set all this up because it's like, because Sylvester's the one that's like, who's ever behind this most likely well, it could have either been him or the Ultra Humanite, but I mean, it's most likely both of them because they are in this together. Is that it's like, right, whoever like made it seem like the signal was coming from the McKent's house, which it could have been. It could have been like set through that because that's actually because Jordan's the one behind this. That's why I was wondering, like, was it going to be like, no, Jordan's actually still alive? And that's why I figured, like, I thought it was kind of real that it was actually going through the McKent's, like, which it still could be, but they're not going to think that because they think, like, Jordan's dead. The McKent's had nothing to do with this. This could have just been a setup just to cause the ruckus that it did. So we'd have that fallout, drag out fight like we did. So, oh, God, dude. And Jordan said, well, at least you get to die together. And then their final words to each other, I love you. Oh my God, they were good people. Oh, that's so, that bummed me out. I need to watch something a little more uplifting because I that's just going to be sitting on my mind for the next while. I got 3 more episodes to sit on that information too. 3 more weeks of sitting there remembering, yeah, no matter how this ends, the Crocs are dead. Barbara lost her new friend, you know. Especially after Paul. Oh, dude, it's so depressing. We'll ultimately just have to wait to see where the next 3 episodes, where the next episode in particular takes us going forward with all of this. But really, that's all I wanted to talk about. Till the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day, and goodbye.